Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Design Sense. I'm Raad Ghantous, and with me, as always, is my co-host for Design Sense, Mr. Bill Elson. Bill,
Hello.
how are you today?
I'm fine, Raad. Thank you so much. This is very exciting today
Who
to
do
see
you
you.
who do you have for us today? I know you've got
Well,
somebody
today
special
we
lined up.
have a very special person that I'm really excited to. She's a multi-talented designer. She's won 3 very important Emmys for set design for the incredible situation company Will and Grace. I'm sure
Oh,
many people.
yes, great show.
And then not only that, she was the set decorator for that incredible movie with Sharon Stone and Michael Douglas. I'm sure everyone remembers that, Basic Instinct. And the wonderful one where it was all underwater, which was The Abyss.
Yes,
And
a
like
good
I
show
said,
too.
she was movie set design, television design, and as well as interior
So
design.
don't keep me hanging. Who is it? I mean, if people haven't figured
The
out already.
incredible, the one and only, the extremely talented Melinda Ritz.
Well, let's see if we can get Melinda out of the
Let's
green room here. Hold on a second.
away from her busy day.
I know, and I'm sure you have more to say once she's on camera with us here. Hold on a
Oh
second.
yes, she's
Yeah,
very.
let's see if we can get Melinda to join us from the green room.
Okay.
Oh, there she is.
There she is.
Melinda is there. There she is. Hi, Melinda.
Hi, Melinda. Thank you so much for being on our show. We're just honored and delighted to have you with us and learn all about, or just a small portion about your incredible talent. And so maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this industry.
The design industry. The
Yeah.
design industry, how I got involved is I was working in the film business, film and television, going back to age 22. And I started working as a set decorator in film and television. And once I got to around the 90s, the work was a little more on TV. It was a little more residentially. It was a little more residential looking. And with the beginning of shows like Will and Grace and another spoof that I did, which was a spoof about Martha Stewart at the time in the 90s, the producers and writers, directors, and everybody, they began to recognize what they were seeing that I was creating on stage. And then little by little, they kept asking me to come over and take a look at their houses and give them some advice. And then I would just do it as a little side business and I would help them here and there. And then all of a sudden I'm doing houses and houses and houses, and I'm working 3 jobs at a time. And I'm working, 16 hours a day, all day long, doing television sets during the day and interior design for my clients at night. So it was definitely, I was segueing from the film business, which kind of drove my interior design business, but segueing from film into interior design. And that is the place I am the most happy.
Well, that's good, because I watched Will and Grace and your sets were so incredible for Karen's house and Will's house. And I was at a event where you spoke, and this young woman came up and she was so excited to meet you. She said that you were the reason why she became a designer. I thought that was such a fabulous testimonial of your talent. Now, perhaps you can share with us what inspires you. Where do you get your inspiration from?
Right. Well, I think that being in the film business my entire life, growing up in a family that was in show business. My dad was in show business. He was a comedian and he did movies in the 30s and 40s and then later nightclubs. I grew up, I was force-fed old movies, and I knew everything about old movies as a teenager. I had all my favorite actors and Joan Crawford, and I saw these fabulous sets, and I just kind of had a sense of theatrics in my interior design approach. And I wanted the interior design to relate to the architecture, obviously, but within, as an interior designer, you have a chance to play with the interior, what you see in the interiors beyond furniture. That's the difference between a decorator and a designer, is that it's more than just furniture or fabric. It is actually what you create, what the setting is, what your view is. All of these things is a creation and a point of view. And also I relate it all to what does the camera see? You, the client, have the eye, and it is what I want you to see that fulfills something tremendous, that brings up something emotional with you as a client. So I direct the camera. I make sure that what you see is what I want you to see, and what I don't want you to see, you don't see. So it's a balance, and it's a fascinating, because I've never gone to school for this. It's just all
that's amazing.
the grade that I was able to apply to interior design.
Melinda, how did you get your start? I mean, a little bit more specific. How did you get your start? Was it just because you were from a family that was in the industry? And
No.
how did you get your start?
Not at all. No, my dad, my sister and I were my dad's fourth set of kids.
Okay.
And my mom was about 32 years younger than my dad. So by the time I was 17, 18, he was quite old and not really with it, and on the serious decline. And his business, the film business, was not really related to our family by that time at all.
Okay.
We were more concerned with his health, and I was trying to get through college. But it was, we had grown up in Las Vegas, and we were very Vegas savvy and very Vegas fabulous.
Right.
But then my mother wanted to live at the beach, and so we had to make a big life change. And I ended up going to school by a miracle, some rinky-dink school in San Diego. But the miracle of miracles was that my speech teacher was actually the star of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. And she recognized something in me. I know it was a miracle, because no other good school would I have had that good fortune to have met this star of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. And she found something in me that she believed was worthy of being in film. And 5 minutes later, I was working on a feature film with the producers of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and it was Return of the Killer Tomatoes. And
the sequel.
I did the sequel. I did the sets, and it kind of changed my life. And because of that experience, within 2 weeks, I found myself on a major feature film with Melanie Griffith back in Las Vegas. I quit college after 5 years because I wasn't going to find, my destiny was not there, and I knew it was going to be in the film business. And I jumped on the circus bandwagon, and I just started working in feature films from then on.
Life's journey and happy accidents, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So what I found was so intriguing about the sets on Will and Grace, and I don't mean to keep going back to it, but it just intrigued me so much, is that you were able to create those sets that perfectly fit the characters, which to me was just amazing that you could do that, because a lot of times you see situation comedies, I don't want to mention any, where you just didn't really feel that character would live like that. But with yours, it was so great. And I know a lot of people in LA. You've lived there for many, many years and done so many things. So perhaps you could let us know some of the interior designers that you think are some of the best in Southern California, and why. I think that might be a little interesting for our viewers.
Well, Southern California encompasses, in my mind, Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, and Orange County. But I think whenever you live in a big city, even though it's a very tough place to be, it demands excellence in whatever the field of business is. And I think the better designers are coming out of Los Angeles and branching out north and south. So from the beginning, I've always found, I love European inspired interiors. I love contemporary. I love timeless interiors. And I love I like contemporary, but I don't like extreme modern.
Hmm.
But I'm probably the biggest fan of Rose Tarlow. I don't know if you've ever heard
Sure.
Of course.
Rose Tarlow is,
Absolutely.
but she's of the old guard,
Yep.
and she, brought back authentic European, not a reproduction of European,
Right.
but authentic European interiors. And they were so warm and human scale and done so right. She is an inspiration to the point where I've always joked, the bumper sticker that religious people have on their car. It says, "What would Jesus do?"
Mm-hmm.
I always say, "What would Rose Tarlow do?"
I love that.
Whenever I'm in a
That's
design
great.
quandary, I
See,
just
I say, mine says, what would Melinda Ritz do?
thank you. You just call me and I'll tell you what to do. But she has the answer. She is so well traveled and world class. And whenever I'm in a design quandary, I kind of think, what would Rose Tarlow do? How would she fix this? How would she deal with it? And then I go to her. Now, on the flip side of Rose Tarlow is a woman who has a huge fan base, and she's amazing, but some people absolutely love her and some people do not like her at all. She's really a heavy decorator, Kelly Wursler, and I think that she has revolutionized the hospitality business and interior design business. And she runs the full spectrum. Also, she is the newer guard. And she also, like Rose Tarlow, has her own lines of furniture and fabrics and branding, and she's beautiful to look at. But she takes risks. She is not a traditionalist. She is a maximalist. And for that, I love her because for good or bad, she takes advantage of every moment. And I find that inspirational.
That's really wonderful how you spoke about both those designers in such an interesting way. I can really understand exactly. And what you talk about, Kelly Wursler, is, I believe, very true. I've never heard someone explain.
It's perfectly described. Yeah, you described it perfectly. I think anybody who's familiar with those two ladies, and I remember when I first started, I actually had a chance on numerous occasions to go to Rose Tarlow's the showroom. We ordered. I mean, authentic is exactly how I would put it. It's not reproduced. It's through her own eye, but the authenticity and the spirit of the pieces definitely reflect that old European charm that you were talking about.
Yes, and that feels so, it resonates with so many people.
Yeah.
You can spin that around and you can add more decoration to it, but she's got the base right. I mean, a designer's job it's not to reproduce a reproduction and keep reproducing. It is to bring something new and fresh to everything, a vision and a surprise to your clients that surprise them and surprise their guests, but is also a reflection of who the client is and how they want to outwardly appear to everybody else, but also finding their comfort level in the whole experience. So
Melinda, it's really funny. I have two things that I've been saying. Interior design for me was a third degree. Undergraduate economics and a master's in marketing, and then I ended up doing interior design. And I've ran, like, when somebody asks me some questions, there's two things that I usually use as a reference point. And it's funny because, this is a great opportunity for me to sit here and talk to you. One of the things I always said is the way I design, I think, is very much influenced by television, in that basically the spaces, you get what the spaces are when you first walk in.
Right.
But then, just like a story that unfolds over a duration of whatever it is, if it's a mini series or an episode of something, there's unfolding surprises, or the story unfolds into areas but they're not in conflict with that original impression. They are supportive of that original impression. And then on the commercial side, because I do a lot of hospitality stuff, I've been telling people, and this is maybe my business brain and my design brain, is that your place of business, brick and mortar place of business, whatever it may be, service product especially, is a stage upon which you perform your business. And if the stage is not in purposeful, strategic, either conflict or coordination with your messaging, with what you're trying to do to provide a unique value, a unique storyline, if you will, then it has a direct link to the success or failure of your business. And when Bill was talking about the sets in Will and Grace, that is a great show. I mean, I loved watching that show, and he is absolutely right, because those characters were great and well written. But if they did not have the stages that you designed for them to perform those roles, the depth of the character would not have been there.
Right.
See, when we get a script, it's just a script with a bunch of dialogue on it. It says Will's apartment, it says Grace's, apartment, and gives some sketch, but it's really nothing. We, the production designer and the set decorator, have to develop an entire backstory, an entire history for these characters. And we have to bring that forth in the objects that I select, the color story, and all of these sort of tangible and visible things.
Mm-hmm.
But like in interior design, it's not even so much your selections, it's the way you arrange things in the room.
The layering of it.
The layering, and what is the picture? What is the picture? And in interior design, in sets, television sets, you literally have 3-wall sets. And, you build Will's living room on one part of the stage, and then his bedroom is probably 6 sets away on the opposite end. But you have to thematically connect that. That is, we build a story, a background story, that he's well-traveled, he's acquired this, he's of a certain economic bracket, a certain thing. And then I'm able to identify the objects that support the backstory and the character that we've already developed. And then it's in arranging them so that they are visible to the audience. But also what's interesting about television is, do not forget, if you have a season, we were lucky enough to have 8 good seasons on Will and Grace, that the audience has to tune in and know exactly where they are at that moment. It needs to tell the story immediately for the audience to understand. And also it has to transcend, let's say, 8 years, every week. It has to tell a story. And that is what's important in designing sets, but designing homes. It is a reflection of who you are and who you want, how you want to be interpreted to your audience. It's another story about you.
But I think it again, if a show basically has a successful run, it's going on over a number of years. Right. So you're also facing with changing trends depending on the time period it's set. Even if it is a period piece, there's changes that happen. So those stages are not static. They evolve and they change and they reflect things that are, again, you're keeping within the personality of the character, maybe even the development of that character over 8 seasons, right? So it's similarly in a person's home. I think one of the things that people always misunderstand is that it is not a snapshot. It is actually a living, breathing space.
Yeah.
And you have to, as a designer, allow for that to happen between the, in that negative space, if you will. And so some people do it better than others. I have a question for you. What's the favorite movie that you have as far as sets goes? Do you have one?
You sprung that on me. Oh, there's so many. There's so many periods and eras, and
we can come back to it, Melinda.
There's so many. I love period drama. So it was when
the Merchant and Ivory movies.
The Merchant and Ivory movies. You got it, Bill. Like, those were so romantic and so beautiful and exquisite and picturesque. And I love
Remains of the Day.
Yeah, I mean,
Remains of the
Day Room with the View.
It was about the house. I think the other extraordinary movie that was more recent than those, was I Am Love, which took place at this Art Deco Italian villa in Milan. And, that house and those characters, the house said so much about the characters. And, I appreciate a director that takes the opportunity in costume, makeup, and settings, that they maximize all of that. They don't forget that that is the story. And, your home is the story,
Mhm.
and you need to max it out also. But yes, I appreciate grandeur and beauty. I'm not so much for slick Hollywood looking sets or faux sets that look like sort of MGM musicals.
Oh,
Really
yeah.
into any of that.
Flat, soulless,
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly. Which is what we do today in a different way. But you know what I mean.
No,
So
I
perhaps you could tell us, so when you're dealing with a set in a movie, you have the director, the producer, the script. But when you're dealing with a residential client, you know, sometimes clients have an idea of what they really want.
Yeah.
But then when you get in the middle of the design, you realize, you know, that's not what they really want. They want something else. How do you, you know?
You know, I feel it is, you know, a client or anybody for that matter doesn't know what they don't know. And whatever they feel that they know, I do my research. I know I can trump what they think they want. I know I can show them a better expression of what sense they want out of it.
Yeah.
It is my job to do the research. It's my job to the designer brings the research, a presentation, an idea beyond what a client even suggests. Sometimes it's just finding out what their favorite hotel is and where that is and what wine they like, and then evoking that in the house as you design it, finding points of interest. But other times it's an understanding. I had one client and he was just like stuck in Pottery Barn 1990s. And, you know, for his home, he wanted that kind of preppy look, East Coast Boston look that he couldn't get over. But I turned his house into a London gentleman's club.
Oh.
I took it the distance, but I had to show him a story that unfolded and resonated with him, something he could not imagine for himself. So that's your job. Your job is not just to go find cool things and stick them in a room or find something that's now and trendy. Your job is to extend your client's personality and give them an experience and give them destinations within their house to entertain and show off to people. The job of the interior designer is to be very, to bring something to them they cannot get for themselves. So sometimes it's access or developing an art collection, which they could not do on their own.
Right.
So it's a full-time job. It's, you know, you got to get to know your clients. It's not about trends. It never is about trends.
And that is that the differentiation. Perhaps you can tell our viewers between a decorator. There's this whole, you know, dichotomy between who's a decorator, who's a designer. I mean, you're definitely a designer. So perhaps you could shed some light on that for us.
Right. I think the terms are very convoluted nowadays. There are people that work within a design studio and they source furniture on the web, and, you know, they put proposals together and they sort of do the business end. I would not call that a designer. I would call the principal of the business a designer, because it is of their creative mind as to what then other people have to source for them. But I would not call the people that are not actually designing designers. They are perhaps decorators. So in the old days, a decorator was someone who already walked into some house that was already built, done and finished, and they added FF&E, drapes and the nice couch, and they put a bergère over there and a nice plant over there. That's a decorator in my mind. That was the term, but no one wants to be called just a decorator now, do they? So it diminishes them, and since they're not getting paid very well, they want a good title, just like I want a good credit on a show. But I would say the designer is the person who has the creative imagination. They are the visionary, and they have the ability to take the shell of a house, and from the point of the very first point is to imagine what the spaces should be, how they should feel, where the window should be placed, what do you see outside of the window, a seating nook. It's all a thought process, and it is not what a decorator does. It's a thought process more than it is a decorative process.
But
That's the designer.
Melinda, I think, would you agree that in a designer's role almost, especially with a space, is how it is experienced, not necessarily how it is aesthetically decorated. And I think, you know, that can be achieved in multiple ways. But if
right,
you know,
that's interchangeable.
Yeah, I mean, I think that so it's really funny. Some of the most favorite feedback that I've ever gotten was things like, "Oh my gosh, I was with my daughter. I just got one the other day. Oh my gosh, I'm with my daughter in the new kitchen. I love the fact that we can be working in this kitchen, and my other daughter joined us, and nobody's on top of each other. And
Lifestyle.
it was about the making of the memories in the space
Right.
that really added the value to it. It wasn't the fact that you know, the pans were from one place or the hood and the equipment from another. Right? I think there's an aspect of that's very powerful. I think for us designers is we actually have the power to enrich somebody's life.
Oh, absolutely. And what that takes beyond vision and even beyond experience is something intuitive.
Yeah.
I don't need to kill someone to know what it is like to kill someone, but I know intuitively that it's either good or bad. I know I can anticipate every move, and I can guide people. And it's just part of my soul. I mean, I've given up what a lot of people value, home and family, in order to be this person that helps others live their lives to the fullest. And out of that, I get tremendous joy and love. And I help them understand how best to work with what we've done together. And I have to think about all of these things. I just left a developer. I just went to 3 home sites and walked into 2 spec houses, and I could identify immediately all of the lifestyle problems. It is there were issues that I know I can correct, and if I can identify the issues, then I will certainly want to correct them and maximize people's lives.
Creatively,
a wonderful gift.
Problem solve, basically.
Pardon?
You're creatively problem solving.
Yes, it is problem solving, and it is creating, and it's like any other creative process. Yeah.
But I remember that one room you did a number of years ago at the Decorator Showcase. It was just absolutely incredible with the giraffe swimming in the water, the piece of art, and you had the daybed on an angle. It just transported me to another place, which I thought was incredible. It wasn't common, it wasn't mundane. It was just like, oh my God, this is design, you know.
Well, thank you.
You really have that great gift that you give your clients, and I certainly hope they appreciate it.
They do. They've been amazing and very highly responsive and surprised and emotionally moved. And that is what the whole thing is about. When a client walks in and they basically traveled the whole world and yet walk in and they cry when they see their homes.
And now they're home.
Yeah, you know, it's a tremendous gift. It's tremendous joy for me. That is an example. A showcase is an example where you are allowed for the first time to do something without a client. It's driven by the designer. It's taking a space and transforming the space into something that is a surprise that blows people away. And that's what all the fun of doing showcases is really all about.
Melinda,
and some people walk through, they don't understand it. They don't understand it. Some people understand it. I mean, what you're supposed, you know, you just have to let it be the way it is.
well, but that's part of that education. I mean, everybody's on a different path and a different way to knowledge, and sometimes that's the start for some people. Some it's a culmination. Melinda, Bill touched on it a little bit, I think, when he was making reference to your work in the showcase house. It's an element of escapism, an element of adventure exploration, right?
Right.
Which again, movies is another medium that provides that, right? And we as a society have always leaned on those, especially in times of crisis. So
True.
where I'm taking this is
That's
right now,
interesting.
where we are today with a lot of people being, at home.
Right.
Maybe some of them had not really looked at their homes
That's
in
right.
a way that they now do after almost 2 months of being sequestered in them. So what their homes need to provide them as a haven, a sanctuary, all those things, a little escapism. What do you think is happening? I mean, it strikes me as almost like that we may have a renaissance of how spaces can be addressed coming out of this crisis.
Right. So in recent years, call it the last 25 years or so, people have been able, through their economy, to buy bigger spaces, much bigger spaces. And there's some people that want a sense of party, and they don't really utilize their homes except for themselves or for show, but then they tend to go out. They're driven by hospitality. I think hospitality in the last 15 or 18 years has exploded because hospitality has a way of being able to entertain people to a point where they just can't manage that in their own homes. It's not comfortable, but people are driven now more than ever, or have been, to experience things it's all about the experience. I mean, look at Las Vegas. Have you been to Las Vegas in the last 10 years? It's an incredible, visionary, utopian, loud, cacophonous, experience of trying to entertain people, because people demand so much entertainment. And they don't even mind going to a restaurant where they can't hear their date across the table speaking. They've learned to be lip readers, and they just love the energy. There's a certain energy about going out, but I'm afraid that energy is now lost. That energy of partying with a lot of people, a lot of strangers, being in a room packed with energy and loud music, I'm afraid that's not going to happen, especially with the 50% seating
Occupancy.
rule. And I think that's over. And I hope, my hope of hopes is that people really learn to understand the potential of their homes and how they can entertain. I know people in the tabletop business that have been really suffering. Nobody wants to buy fine china, fine dining, beautiful silver. They don't want to care if they pass it down to their kids or not. They've given all of that up for an experience. And I say you can have the most gorgeous, elevated experience in your own home, but you kind of have to be taught how to appreciate that. And I think we will be spending time home. I think we will be entertaining more and more and inviting our friends over to our house and upgrading how we serve dinner, how we prepare things, how we show people how we live. And I think that it will be a time for us to circle back and figure out how valuable our homes really are to our lives.
That's great. And then what about social distancing now when you have this fabulous dinner party? You're going to have like a table that would normally seat 10, only seating 6 or something like that?
No, I don't think that's going to be the case at all. I think people who have friends are going to be comfortable having their friends over.
I think so too.
And they're going to create that experience that they got outside of the house in the house. I think they're going to become incredibly creative. And it's going to circle back to utilizing and maximizing your home to an elevated level.
Yeah, we had a gentleman on last week, and we were talking about certain areas, and they're on the manufacturer side of things. Let's say the closets and built-in cabinetry, and they were saying that they're noticing a increase for obviously the home office needing to accommodate more.
Right.
Entertainment area. Now he used the example of a media center, but I think the entertainment overall idea of entertaining is there's more because you're spending more time in the house. And the interesting thing for me was pantries, because of all the cooking and all sort of that socializing. But now it's more, I'm not sitting down, somebody else is serving me. Now I am being hospitable myself.
I know, but the pantry is essential now, because
Mhm.
now you have to sort of bank your food. You have to get a lot of food to feel secure, and you need a lot of space to hoard your food, and you better get your food in your house and have that peace of mind that you've got a big pantry full of what you need, rather than running around town. And I think pantries are really going to be a premium request, and I think home offices are going to be a little more techno savvy.
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful new time to get off of the roads, get off of the freeways, reduce stress, and do your work without the stress of having to report in and perform in bad lighting.
Right.
It's like, make your house the office that you've
Yep.
always wanted to work in. So I think that there are upgrades with being home now, for at least for the next couple of years, as we sort of move through this new life.
That's one. Any other areas, Melinda, do you think that you're thinking of specifically, maybe in the
Yes.
home that
So I've been building spa rooms for my clients, forever. They want a massage room and this and that. They call for private, masseuse to come over. And I think those days are over. I think the strangers coming in and touching you in the spa are over. And I'm looking at new kinds of massage tables that are, you don't even have to take off your clothes. There's no oil. You sort of get in this water bubble.
Yep.
And the table, this thing.
Hydro massage tables. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's phenomenal. I experienced one in Austria, at a spa in Austria in the mountains, like 15 years ago. And I think that using technology that sort of has to substitute for the touch of a human might be the new way. I would say that as in previous times, a home salon is going to be preferred over running out to another salon. I think people will be building much more personally tailored self-improvement areas for themselves, for grooming.
Do you think that will translate, Melinda, into a different take on what happens in what will be left of the retail commercial thing? I mean, if that is what we're looking for, are the days of, side by side pedicure thrones over, are, large mass production kind of things? Are we done with that?
Well, no, I don't think we're done with that at all. But unfortunately, the experience is going to change whether we like it or not. And there are for businesses, I believe, if they can afford to do what is directed under social distancing, if they can afford to divide their salon and only take in 50% or put a partition and maintain all of this, if they're willing to do that, then I think that they only take in half of the customers they're directed to. I think those people will survive. But I saw the news about 11 Madison Avenue, the finest restaurant in the world in New York City, which is an amazing restaurant. I've seen documentaries about it. They are out of business because why? Because in order to manage what these new directives are for social distancing and service, it would cost them millions to retrofit, and it would not be pretty. It's not a pretty experience for people.
Right.
But I do believe that those people who work in the restaurant business, service people, or perhaps chefs, will start to be, I'm talking about the highest end, of course, but I think chefs will be asked to come into the home and prepare meals in front of guests. I think I'm speaking about the highest end.
Right.
But I think there'll be more to do at home with outside vendors coming in or around your house to service you. But it's going to be an unfortunate, it's unfortunate for a lot of businesses. I think, obviously, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's and it's
bad for the businesses, but then it also cascades, right? Then it's the the landlord and
Commercial real
real
estate.
estate, and that eventually impacts the residential real estate.
Don't get me started, guys,
know.
because I could go right into conspiracy land, but
Oh, because most restaurants are built with the idea that they have this many tables,
exactly.
they call them covers, so they'll make this much money.
And the margins are very small.
Eliminate half of them. You're not going to make that money, so they're just, you're right, they should just close.
The restaurant business is decimated, but at the same time, well, there's different levels of restaurant business. Right. There's fast food, there's fast casual, and then it starts to go up for that. I believe that fast casual, the idea of taking your family out to Outback or something like that for a quick dinner, I think those days are over. Mm-hmm. I think that's a tough. The ones in the middle are not going to do well. The lower ones will do fine, and perhaps some of the other ones, the more higher end that can afford it. And if people are willing to do that, it might be that people are just not willing to walk in to an empty restaurant, no matter how good the food is. It's just not fun.
It's
not fun.
No.
So, but if people are working more at the house, then they have less need to rush out to dinner. They might have time to order their groceries, prepare meals, have an experience at their own hand, rather than it being such a service-based world. Mm-hmm. And it is only a service-based world right now, instead of, some people just don't know how to do anything.
Right.
And they need middlemen to do this. So I think a lot of middlemen are going to be cut out. And
I think that designers like you that bring the fabulous experience to their clients, that create something that they could not get on their own, will always have a place in design. Because I'm always hearing from designers or from just regular friends of mine saying, oh, aren't you worried about your job? Because with all of the places online and they can order. And I'm like, no, because they can't, like you said, the typical person cannot create that experience that you can for them. So like you said, I think people of your talent and gifts will always be able to survive in this economy.
Well, you have to go with the times, flow, adapt. You have to teach people how they can do it differently, but easily. And it's just a helpful job. It's just helping others. This is what I'm good at. I don't march and I don't do other things. This is what I've dedicated my life to doing. And when you dedicate your life to something, you can absolutely make a difference. This is what I do best. And this is where my energy goes. So I know I can help people live better.
Well, you do, because that testimonial of that young woman in the audience that came up to you and said that you were her inspiration, and that's how she became a designer. That's the testimony right there. It's proof.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good to hear. But send me some billionaires while you're at it.
Okay, I will. I'll work on that for you. Okay.
That's what we need.
Melinda, what would you tell somebody who's just starting as a designer?
Yeah, I mean, I think every field when you're just starting is daunting and a long, long journey. It was a fast journey for me back in the day because things were less structured, less formalized. You did not have to have certifications, training, all of these things that are now required for you, licensing. I mean, I just stepped in. Someone said, help me, and I helped them, and I didn't have to have so much process behind me. And I think that young people are just kind of hooked and rooked into going to school for just far too long.
Right.
And instead of doing practical experience work, I would say the first thing you need to do is open up your eyes, pay attention to your surroundings, to everything, be fascinated, read, experience, look at, watch, know and understand people, travel, open up your eyes, figure out, look at history, historic History tells you everything you need to know. You can bring that into anything. Don't follow trends, but jump in. Be someone's. I was an apprentice to someone for 7 years in the film business before I felt even comfortable having my own show. I eased into interior design. Go at your pace. Go get your foot in the door, work for incredible talents, follow their leads, and then you might be ready to own your own business. But a lot of schooling, people who sit at a computer and design, so-called designers all day long, they're really not designers. They're not feeling it. They're just doing whatever. We don't want computer-generated interiors. That is not how we want to live. We want people that have an experience that they can hand over to someone else, that is not driven by a computer program or a high-tech finish. It's just not going to work.
Well, that's just a skill set. That is just a tool of your profession, but it's not the spirit of your pursuit.
Right, but that can't be everything. You can't say it must be more well-rounded. I mean, I think about all of it. I don't have to work on a computer to be a designer. I can hire someone to do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so be a real designer in your mind, in your thinking, rather than someone who's been trained or overtrained in a technical process. That's not what you need to bring to the table.
Which easily can happen. Like you said, you have to be conscious of what you want, and I guess be authentic to yourself is the only way you're going to be authentic about anything else, right? So
travel in your mind, read books, understand historic. Do you know who Eleanor Schrader Schappa is? She's a design historian from UCLA. She really educates people on why do we have a coffee table? Why do we need a coffee table? When did coffee tables actually appear?
Great.
Not till like the 30s did a coffee table show up. Things you would never know. Do your research. Understand the reasons why you have drapes. Why do we have drapes? We have drapes because in ye old England, we had to protect ourselves from the draft. Why do we have carpets on the floor? Because it was cold in those castles. There are reasons. If you apply the reasoning to the design, it helps you be a rich person.
The perfect example, Melinda, you're right on. The perfect example is with this crisis, with the COVID. It's been interesting to actually remind people that the reason we design bathrooms the way we design bathrooms is as a historical reaction to infectious diseases. The materials that we use, are actually right out of, Formica and hard surfaces and synthetics. I mean, that's all comes from sort of almost the medical field, then got a little spin put on it. My favorite one has been, and I don't know, Bill, if you know this, but why do we have powder rooms? Why do we have guest bathrooms?
Why?
We have guest bathrooms because I don't know if it's the old England or not, but back in the day when people had big enough homes that they would have delivery of coal, delivery of ice, delivery of things of that nature. Mm-hmm. They did not want to have the service people actually using, quote unquote, the facilities that are for the homeowner. So they basically would start off with putting a sink next to maybe where the delivery door was, and then a toilet joined that. And then next thing you know, the deliveries stopped, but now we have this bathroom. So it became the powder, which we now basically spend more time dressing up than the typical bathroom. So again, the design, to your point, the design isn't happenstance. There is rhyme and reason. And if you have the ability to weave that in and understand that about your profession, you are richer for it. And then that carries into your work.
I think we need to go to dinner and talk more about this.
Talk more about
anytime. You let us know.
Teach each other, because designers tend to be competitive, but this is really good knowledge, and it's fun to talk about all.
Very, very timely. I mean, think about you know, and yeah, I know we're not hanging around and having parties right now, but you know, what an icebreaker it would be to talk about, hey, infectious diseases and the effect of designing bathrooms. I'm joking, but yes, no, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the thing that keeps resonating with some of these interviews and people, regardless of what profession they're in, is a sense of curiosity, a sense of passion for knowledge, not really ever falling on, you know, resting on your laurels that you know everything. And you know what a boring existence that is, right? If you stop,
want to learn every single day. And yeah, that's why I'm surrounded by my books. I refer to them all the time. I don't. It's where you get your information, and as long as you're getting some information, you have an understanding, you can apply it, and help people, you know, live.
No amount of Google search is going to replace flipping through a nice, beautiful book that inspires you. I'm sorry, but
that's
true. That's information too, but it's not the same.
Books make you feel warm when you're surrounded in a library. I think it's one of the best feelings ever. And that's the other thing is, what do people feel comfortable in? You could deny a house, you could have a house without a library, but how much better would it be to be surrounded by books of your choice, and you're choosing, because that's an occupation, selecting your books and flipping through them.
One last question for me, and then Bill's got probably some. What are you excited about right now? Like you have had a very rich professional career. You're continuing to be involved. Is there anything that kind of just excites you? That
Okay. Well, there's a couple of things for me personally right now. I felt I wanted to not do the film industry anymore. It was really keeping me from experiencing the world. And now I just want to experience the world because now I have time to do it and I have the wherewithal to do it. But unfortunately, we can't really travel.
Not at the moment.
I definitely want to travel more. I definitely want to see the world before a lot of stuff goes away before our eyes. I want to experience more. That is what I'm excited about. That is what gives me the zest for life, to keep going, is the ability to travel and experience. I'm excited about doing new work. I have new work that's coming in that is super exciting. But what is exciting about it, it's not what I'm doing, it's something about what I'm doing. I'm taking something, I'm exploring beauty again for I am exploring beauty. I believe we should be restoring beautiful buildings. We should be restoring all of the churches and synagogues and places of worship. We can't let beauty disappear. We cannot let developers take it away in favor of something cheaper.
A white box.
Pardon?
A white box.
You know, they say, well, that's what people want. No, people don't know what they want. And we can't let our environment disappear. Just like we can't take down a beautiful forest, we must help it along. And so for the last design years of my life, I'm invested in ultimately making the world a more beautiful place. And recently I saw a documentary that speaks to this in the most profound way, and I encourage the audience and yourselves to watch this. It's on YouTube. It's Roger Scruton's documentary about beauty, and this is what life is about. It's about making beautiful things, restoring beauty, and having a really, really good time despite awful situations. We can only do what we can do, and that's what I can do.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Melinda.
Thank you for having me. This was most enjoyable.
It was a lot of fun. We'll have to make that dinner arrangement when this is all over.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. Can only go when there are 6 other people in the restaurant.
Well, that's a chef's table. I mean, you just described.
Chef's table.
Melinda, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I loved it. And I'll talk to you soon. And
Okay.
thank you, audience. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Be well.
Thank
Talk
you.
to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.